Good afternoon, Ms. Schwitzsky. Good afternoon. So before we get into a few things, I have some things I want to go back to. Specifically, I want to go back to when we were talking about Mr. Goldberg's ex-girlfriend. Was there an interaction with a new boyfriend or somebody that was kind of like related to around his ex-girlfriend on Boca Bash at that day?
Yes, I think her ex-boyfriend or boyfriend at the time.
Okay, and you indicated that either you don't know or you couldn't recall what her name was.
Right.
Okay, would looking at your deposition that you gave in this case refresh your recollection?
Yeah, I guess it is Angela, yes.
Oh, Angela, okay. So
Right,
you-
is it Angela?
Well, I'm asking if reading your deposition would refresh your memory.
Oh, it probably would. I know something with an A.
May I approach the witness, Judge?
You may.
And referring you to page 81, line 14 to 22. Just let me know when you're done, don't read it out loud.
Okay, yeah, it says Angela.
Okay, did that refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Okay, so Angela is the girl that you guys had some issues about pertaining to respect, him being in the relationship with you, still speaking to Angela. Is it
Right.
that same ex?
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as the seltzers and Mr. Goldberg throwing a seltzer at you, do you recall if it was one seltzer?
I believe he threw like 5, 6.
Okay. And you indicated you weren't even sure if he knew what he was doing.
That's true.
Okay. Do you recall giving a deposition in this case?
In regards to the seltzer?
For this case in general?
Yes.
Okay. And you were sworn in on that day?
Right.
Okay. And that was in June of 2023, so a little over a year after the incident. Would you say your memory about this incident is better today, or if it was better in June of 2023?
I don't know, ma'am. I think my memory was better the day of.
Judge,
but-
objection, improper impeachment, impeaching on witness.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
I don't know how to answer that. I don't know if my memory is better now than before.
Okay. So when you were under oath at your deposition, do you remember giving an answer as to the seltzer conversation and whether it was intentional?
I don't remember what exact words I used, but I know that it was mentioned. It's always been mentioned. I've always mentioned it from the beginning.
Okay, so is there, if reading your deposition, will that refresh your recollection about kind of what the intent was of Mr. Goldberg throwing the seltzers, if you look at your deposition that you gave in June of 2023?
I don't think the story would change. It's what happened. We were on one of the owner's boats, and I was on a trampoline. I was on a water toy with a bunch of girls, and he started throwing the seltzers. And the first one, the second one, it was funny, haha, everything was fine. Once one hit my face is when I got irritated and upset and angry with him. But that's what happened.
Okay, so do you remember indicating or being asked whether it was malicious of him to throw the cans?
Right. I don't think anything that day. At the end, how I feel is, I think he was just not.
I'm going to object to
Himself.
speculation.
Okay.
She's answering her question. Overruled.
Well, no, I'm responsive.
You can answer next question.
Okay. I want you to testify to what happened that day, not what you think now. I want you to testify to what he did that day.
Okay.
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
So on that day, when he was
Okay.
throwing cans at you,
Right.
do you believe he intended to hit you with a can?
I can't speak about what his intentions were. All I can say was that I was in danger. I didn't feel safe. I think that, like I mentioned, the the first couple cans, it was fun, everybody was having a good time, but once it hit me, that's when I felt like everything got violated.
Okay, so your testimony today is that he threw around 5 cans,
Yeah, 3 to 5.
okay, and that you were able to catch some of them,
Right, I was trying to catch them, yes. We were on a floaty and he was throwing and I tried to catch them.
and that at some point one struck you.
Yeah,
Okay, and did you consent to having a can thrown at you?
no, that was never spoken or agreed about.
Did you ask him to throw you a can?
No,
Okay, so were any of the cans 1 to 5 wanted by you?
no.
Okay. So back to where we were on your direct. We were at the point where you were pulled onto the boat. And at that point, you're inside this boat. Do you see what Mr. Goldberg does?
When I'm inside Matt Paris's boat?
Yes.
No, I don't recall the interaction with what happened or how the screaming started. I think he was like asking for help, and at one point I tried to help, and then the people in the boat got very angry, and then it kind of just was left there.
When you're pulled on the boat, is anybody like on the boat helping you?
Yeah, they were all helping.
Did they give you a towel,
I think so.
bottle of water,
I think so.
orange juice?
I think so.
How were you feeling in that moment?
I felt betrayed. I felt angry. I didn't feel safe.
Did you feel scared?
I felt scared, yeah.
Did you cry?
Yes, I cried that day.
And after this event specifically, did you cry?
Yeah, sometimes when I think about what happened and you know, what we experienced, it's emotional. I think anybody would feel that way. It's not a nice feeling, but, you know, mistakes were made and here we are now.
Okay, so when you got pulled on the boat, safe to say, you cried at some point?
Yes,
Okay. Were you shaking?
probably.
And at that point, did you ever come into contact with police?
Yeah, I came into contact with them, I believe, like after they had come into contact with Cole. They wanted to ask questions and they came on the boat. I think that's, you know, and then they started asking questions and,
Was that around the same time that you were comforting Cole?
I think so, yeah. All I remember is just like being bent over and saying, everything's gonna be fine, relax, everything's fine. And I just remember like the police like coming near us and getting him on the boat. And then I believe like 1 or 2 entered the other boat, and that's when they started like talking to me and asking what happened.
Okay, so before we get into kind of what happens with the police, I'm gonna ask you, after what he did to you, why would you go and comfort or speak to Mr. Goldberg?
I think I did that because at the end, like, I knew he wasn't like a bad person. He just lost it, you know? And I felt terrible. I don't understand why he had to come after me. Like, why couldn't you just stay there? None of this would have occurred. So as a mother, I have children. I felt, you know, that this was a sad situation. So I don't like to see anybody, you know, crying or in pain, or so no matter what it is I went through at that moment, you know, the care I had for him was stronger than the fear. And I started just like telling him everything's gonna be fine, you know, because I saw that he was panicking, and I can't, like, I'm not just gonna, you know, I don't know, that was my instinct, that's what I went to do.
Okay, so when you're doing that, you're comforting him, did you want to go back with him?
No, that was never like on my mind, like, oh, I hope we can fix this.
For that day even? Did you want to leave with him that day after what had happened?
No.
Were you scared of him?
I was disappointed at that moment. I was scared. Being under the water, I had never experienced something like that, so it was a very scary experience. But what I felt like what I wanted more was an apology. I wanted him to like recognize what he did. I wanted his family to know what had happened and for them to like help him, not necessarily brush it under the rug. Like, let's get help, let's get better, and that wasn't what I got.
So you believe that his actions were as a result of anger?
And alcohol, yes.
So at the point that the police arrive, do they try to talk to you and figure out what happened?
Yeah, they did.
Were you responsive?
I didn't want to say much. I didn't want to, at the end, this was a relationship that I had for months, and we had a lot of like care for one another. So it wasn't like I was trying to destroy him and, oh, go arrest him, officers, and because he just did this. That was not my demeanor at all. I was trying to act like everything was fine, nothing happened, let's all go home. I didn't want this to escalate to something bigger.
Had Cole been crying when he was at the edge of the boat?
Yes.
When you were waiting and speaking to the people on the boat, did you express kind of your conflict and your emotions to them?
I was kind of quiet for a huge period because I was just trying to process everything, so I wasn't like my jittery self. But I do recall that one of the guys on the boat got upset with me and said, you should say something. This is not okay what you just went through.
Objection, hearsay.
So when that was mentioned,
You can keep going.
when that was mentioned, I think that's when I felt like I had the courage to start talking and saying what was happening.
But did you give a statement to police that day saying Cole Goldberg did this to me?
I think I did at the end, yeah.
And was that recorded on body worn?
I don't know. I don't know if they had it on.
Okay, when you were on the boat with the tariff checks and the Paris's and the police are there, did you tell the police what was happening or did you just want to get back to shore?
I don't think it was at that time I spoke to the lady. I think it was more when they were taking me with them and we started talking about domestic violence, and then that's when that conversation started naturally. It wasn't something forced.
Okay, so talking about that, were you arrested on the 24th?
I was.
Okay, and was that for that VOP? With a violation of probation that we were discussing? You were on probation in Miami?
Yeah, but I had not violated it. I had seen my parole officer that Friday, so it was a very weird situation to be put in.
Okay, and as far as your involvement in this case and your involvement with your case in Miami, did you ever promise to Miami that you would be a cooperative victim and you wouldn't get any charges or you would get things taken off? Were you given any benefits for being a victim here?
I don't think so.
Okay. And so whatever happened with your VOP happened of its own accord. Is that correct?
I think so, I'm not sure.
Okay, but you never signed a paper saying, I'm a victim of domestic violence, please, and then they said, well, she's a victim, we're gonna drop this case.
No, I signed a few papers. I don't think it was that.
Okay,
I don't recall.
all right. But it would be a written document that would be in the court system.
I would assume so, yes.
Okay. Speaking of court systems, did you file an injunction in this case kind of after everything happened?
I haven't filed anything.
Was there a civil restraining order that was filed by an attorney that represented you at the time?
Right. I've had a few attorneys, so I don't know what their strategy was, but there's a bunch of documents that were filed on my behalf.
And is there or was there a civil suit pending against Cole Goldberg after this?
I think there was like a restraining order. In the beginning, I was kind of like, I'm afraid, oh, what if they come after me, things like that. But then eventually it either dropped or it got dismissed. I'm not too sure.
Okay. You didn't attend the hearing? Did you? For an injunction, do you remember doing that?
I wasn't, so if we're speaking about my first attorney, Jose Baez, I'm not sure if that's the one that filed that form, but he was fired after me missing an important date. So that's how I went to the second attorney.
Okay. And with the second attorney, you guys have filed a civil lawsuit suing Cole Goldberg for damages?
Well, Jason is no longer representing me because he was threatening me about, not taking the deal or whatever. So he's not in the picture anymore. But it's been a long time. My goal from the civil lawsuit was definitely for Boca Bash to be held responsible. I think it's very alarming that you
Okay,
have
so-
people drinking in the water. There's no, okay.
Okay. So was there or is there a pending lawsuit against Cole Goldberg?
I'm not sure what's been filed or what has remained filed. I'm not.
Did you agree to file at some point?
Oh,
Was
yes,
there an open
yes.
case? Okay. So you're not sure of the status today because of the
Exactly.
change in attorneys,
Yes,
but at some point there has been?
yes.
Okay. Did you testify in the regard of the investigation for the police? Did you give a statement thinking about your probation case that you were on?
I think I had to mention it to them.
Okay, but did you think like, I have to say something or I'm gonna get in trouble with my probation?
No, because remember, I had seen my parole officer that Friday, so I thought I was fine. I didn't know that that was an issue.
When the officers began to ask you questions while you were on the boat, did you ever get emotional?
Probably.
Do you remember if the defendant was calling out to you at any point while you were speaking to officers?
I think he was.
Now, we sort of talked about your career, and safe to say that you were in that career when you were dating Cole.
Yes.
Did Cole have a problem with your entertainment business?
I don't think so. I wasn't doing anything crazy.
Did he have a problem with you being a reality TV star?
I don't think so. I don't recall him commenting about it.
Did he like it?
I don't know.
Okay. One moment to confer, Judge.
Sure.
Right, the state will pass the witness.
Question on this?
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Judge, may I get that other podium? and-
Sure.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You just testified here on direct examination that, quote unquote, the whole day was not pleasant, is that correct?
Yes, for the most part, yes.
But isn't it true that you were the one that insisted on remaining at Boca Bash after the Espinosas left, you and Cole behind?
I think it was a choice that we both decided on.
Not you?
I don't remember, but
Isn't it true that you specifically told Cole, I want to stay, I want to stay? You were having fun, this was the first time that you'd ever been at Boca Bash?
yeah, it could have been done. I asked him, oh, let's stay, and then he said, okay, sure, let's do it.
Right, so it was your decision to stay, was it not?
Probably yes.
Okay. So even though the whole day was not pleasant, right? That's your testimony. You had an opportunity to leave, go back with the Espinosas, and you decided that you were gonna stay. Is that true?
Yes,
And you decided to stay even though there was this incident, argument with the football incident, and then the seltzer incident, and all these horrible things were happening, but you decided to stay back with this man who had been abusing you and jealous all day long, right?
no. The seltzer incident, when it got really bad was after the boat had left.
All right. But you testified that the whole day was not pleasant. That was your testimony on direct examination. You remember that?
Exactly, I said that we started the morning on a rough foot, because that's the truth.
Right. But, all right, we'll go on from that, okay? You also testified that Cole lied about his age. Do you remember telling the Suarez that?
Yes.
You knew that Cole had just graduated FSU, right? Florida State University. You knew he just graduated college. And you knew that he was going to law school, right?
Okay.
Well, you did. You knew that, right?
Yes,
You told the people on the boat that, did you not?
probably.
You also told law enforcement that. You remember that?
Probably.
You were telling everybody there that he was a nice guy, he's going to law school, he's a good guy. You remember that?
I haven't changed. He is a nice guy. He just made a mistake,
Okay.
right?
So you knew his age. You graduated college around 21, 22.
Yeah, but he lied. That's not the point.
You knew. He did not lie.
He did lie.
Why would he tell you he's a different age?
I don't know. Why don't you ask him? I can't respond for him, but he lied.
He never lied about his age. You know that that's...
How would you know?
Judge, your argument.
Sustained.
You also testified on direct examination that when you were on the back of a boat, that when you were thrown into the water, remember that?
Right,
Okay, you were thrown in by Cole, right?
right.
So what did he do? Did he pick you up and throw you into the boat by your stomach, or what did he do?
I think he shoved me.
Okay, but you definitely did not go into the water willingly and on your own accord, right?
I don't think so.
Well, you don't think so? Were you not sure? On direct, you said he threw you in the water. Which is it?
He shoved me.
Okay, so he shoved you into the water against your will, right?
Yes.
And you testified that at some point after he threw you in the water, that somebody threw your bag in. Remember that?
Right, yes.
Okay, so after you got thrown in the water, somebody just throws your belongings, your bag into the water, right?
Right.
And who threw the bag in the water?
I don't remember.
What kind of bag was it?
I don't remember. I just know my phone was in it.
And when he threw you in the water, nobody jumped in after you to help you, right?
No.
Okay, so
They were trying to get me back on the boat. The guy kept saying, come back in.
what guy?
The guy that was next to him when this happened.
Who?
I don't know his name.
Was it the guy who threw the bag in the water?
Yes, probably.
Probably, or it was?
Probably.
Okay, so you're not really sure.
No, it's been almost 4 years. I'm trying to remember, but I do know someone threw the bag, so it must have been Cole or it must have been that guy that said, no, Caroline, come back in, and I was refusing to.
Okay, so now it's possible it was Cole that was telling you to come back,
No,
Caroline?
his friend was the one encouraging me to come back.
Okay, which one of his friends?
He had like dark hair.
Do you remember what he was wearing? What kind of bathing suit?
No, it's been almost 4 years. I don't remember those small minor details.
Remember if it was Sabaz? The person you call him Sabaz?
Sebas?
Yeah,
Sebas
Sabaz.
had left already. We were
Okay.
on another boat.
That's what I'm trying to find out. Who do you think this friend was?
I don't know if this was at the end of the event. This is when I swam away. So this was the last boat we were on.
Right, do you not remember?
It's one of his friends, yes.
Do you remember-
It
do
was
you
a white
remember-
boy. I don't know his name. but
Do you
it's-
are you having trouble remembering because your memory was impaired due to alcohol?
No.
Okay, because you just made a point of saying it was at the end of the day, and I'm wondering why that would affect your ability to recall who this person was. Did it have anything to do with alcohol?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained, it has been asked and answered.
So, the bag goes into the water, right?
Yes.
And it had your phone in it,
Yes.
and then you swam with the bag until you reached Matt Paris's and Alex's boat?
I don't remember. I think I stayed with my phone.
So how did your phone get out of the bag while you were swimming?
While I was swimming, I just took, I'm pretty sure it was a bag of clothes.
Okay, so as you're swimming, right, and the water was a bit rough, you testified on direct examination, right?
Right.
And you were struggling a bit, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then while you're struggling and swimming in rough water, you decide for some reason you're gonna take your cell phone out of your bag, right?
Right. So before I started swimming, right then and there, I stayed with my phone. I think that was like the only asset I had that was important at that moment. So I stayed with the phone and I started swimming.
Okay, so somebody just threw you overboard, and right
Yeah,
before,
so-
let me finish my question. Someone had just thrown you overboard a boat, and moments earlier, you had been sexually molested, and he was trying to hurt you, right? There was an argument, and your bag gets thrown in the water, and then your testimony is that you decide while you're swimming in rough water, you're gonna open your bag and take out your phone because that's the only asset you have?
Yes, because I wanted my phone so that I could get home, because I didn't want to go back home with him.
So why couldn't you have your phone in your bag? Why did you have to take it out of the bag while you're swimming in these rough waters to escape your abuser?
Well, when I say rough waters, the waters were actually really calm. It wasn't rough waters, it was the length of where we were from that boat, and I swam over there. That is what I meant by how it was a difficult time.
So when you took the phone out of the bag, you had the bag still with you when you got to the Paris boat, right?
I don't think so, but I don't remember.
So it's possible your bag was just left in the water there with the
Yeah,
clothes
could be.
floating? And what happened? Do you remember, did it like spill out, or what happened with your bag and all your clothes?
I don't recall, I just started swimming away from the boat, so
Okay, and nobody ever retrieved your bag or gave it back to you after this incident had occurred?
I don't think so.
But it's possible?
I'm not sure.
Objection asked and answered.
So you can answer that. Is it possible somebody gave you your bag back with the clothes?
I'm not sure.
You don't remember that?
No, I think they threw it in the water when I asked for it.
Right, but after you took your phone out while you're swimming in these waters to get away from Cole, did anyone ever then subsequently retrieve your bag and your belongings and give it back to you later that day, or any other point?
I don't recall.
Today you testified on direct examination that I got dragged from the back. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And at one point I thought I heard you say that Cole came from the front and dragged you from the front. Did I misunderstand that, or did you say first the front and then later the back?
So, from what I remember, I was on the floaty and so it's a circle, tubular float, and I'm laying chest down, and he didn't come from the side, He came from the back, that's what I recall. And then, I remember sliding into the water feet first, like, that's how I slid, I got in the water.
So now you slid into the water,
Dragged.
you were dragged in the water.
Right.
And was he behind you or in front of you when you got dragged into the water?
At that point, he was in front of me, because I could see him under the water.
Okay, and so he's underneath you, in the front of you, right? And he's dragging you under the water.
No, he's not underneath me,
Okay.
he's across me.
Okay. I thought at some point on direct examination, you said that he came up from behind you.
Right.
You thought it was a shark,
Right.
and then he flipped over you, and then you later were kicking him. Is that what you said?
What I said was, I did think it was like a shark, because it was strange how I had just gone in the water. And then when I looked up to see, because I couldn't get back on top of the water, because something was holding me down. And that's when I noticed that his hands were on my neck, and he was right in front of me when that happened.
All right, I'm gonna take you through that slowly. So when he swam up behind you, did he immediately flip over you after you thought he was a shark? And then strangle you, or did he strangle you before he flipped over like a shark?
I don't think he flipped. I don't know how he got in the water. All I remember is that when he brought me into the water, when I'm underneath, I can see his body directly in front of me because his arms were extended and he kept in this rage movement going back and forth. So that was the interaction underneath the water. I don't know how he ended up in the water.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out when he flipped over you. Did he flip over you before he strangled you or after he strangled you?
Like I said, I was on the floaty. He drags me into the water, and then from that point, I was under the water, my head completely submerged, and I just see his arms and his legs and his body. I don't know how he got in the water.
That's not my question.
Okay.
I'm trying to find out when the flip occurred. You said earlier on direct examination, he jumped or he flipped over you. That was your testimony. So when did he actually, literally, flip or jump over your body? At what point did that happen?
I think I used the wrong word. I don't think he was doing acrobatics there. I think it was more like in a rage, he dragged me to get me, and then from there, it was easy for him to position him in front of me with his arms. He already had a hold of me.
Okay, well, with all due respect, you would agree that this is a very serious matter, right?
Yes.
Right? And words are very important, right?
Yes.
And the words that you use here, to his honor, are critical, right?
Yes, I've been doing my very best to tell my truth and what I've experienced, and I'm trying my hardest. It's been almost 4 years.
I understand.
Okay.
This is the first I'm hearing about shark-like activity and flipping and jumping over you. So this is a really important issue.
Okay.
And you're not telling me at what point he flipped over you or jumped over you.
I don't think flip was the word. I think it was more like he aggressively shoved, like grabbed me down into the water, and then he maneuvered himself in front of me so that we were positioned like this, like two boxers. That's how we were positioned under the water.
Okay. And you testified that he had his hands on your neck. You said on direct examination, in the water, Cole had his hands on my neck. You remember that?
Yes,
Was that under the water or was that above the water?
under.
So both you and Cole were underneath the water when he had his hands around your neck?
Yes, but his head was on top.
Okay, well, you can't be on top of the water and be under the water at the same time. My question to you was, were both you and Cole underneath the water, when he took his hands and choked you?
No, his head was on top of the water, because I remember all I could see was his neck and down and his two arms. That was the first thing you would see under the water.
And he had both hands and he was choking you?
Yes,
And you testified on direct examination that he was jolting your neck back and forth. Do you remember that?
yes.
And he was doing this in front of many people, right?
In front of the boat we were, yes.
Right. jolting your head back and forth, sort of like a rag doll, right?
Yes.
How many times did he jolt your head back and forth like a rag doll?
I don't remember, but it was a long time. I felt like I was there for a while.
Like several minutes?
I don't think it was several minutes.
How long would you estimate?
I don't know.
Can you tell the court how many times he had your neck jolting back and forth like a rag doll? How many times did he do that roughly?
Well, it was a while because I remember I tried kicking him at first and he wasn't letting go. And then I tried to dig my fingers in his hands to let go, and none of that was happening. And the only reason why everything stopped was because the gentleman intervened. It wasn't like he let go of his own or he came to his senses.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. So your testimony is that you took your nails and you tried to get his hands off your neck. You just testified to that, right?
Yeah, I was trying to have him let go of my neck, yes.
All right. And you were doing that in order to save your life, right? To get him off of you,
Yes,
okay? And of course, when you did that, you had to drop your cell phone, right?
yes,
Okay. And dropped into the water, of course, because that's where you were, right?
right.
You testified on direct examination that Matt Paris was the one that, quote, jumped in and dragged me out of the water. You remember telling Ms. Suarez that?
Right, yes.
And Matt Suarez was not the, well, who was the gentleman on the raft in the water when you first came up to to Alex's boat?
I think that was Matt, I'm not sure.
Okay, so there was a gentleman in the water when you first got up to the boat, right?
The floaty, yes.
Okay, and now it's your testimony that Matt was on the boat and jumped in and dragged you out of the water?
Yeah, somebody in the boat did. I'm pretty sure it was Matt Paris, because I've been hearing that he was like the savior here.
So you just testified that Matt was the one in the water when you first came upon the boat, he was the one in the floaty, and now you're testifying that Matt jumped into the water and took you out of the water.
Yeah, he didn't, I think he was out or back on his boat already. I was under the water, like 20, 30, 40 seconds, I don't know. But at that point, that's when I feel someone grab me back into like the boat
Okay,
area.
so you would agree that if what you're saying is accurate, that Matt was in the water at one point, and now he's back in the boat, and then he jumps in to grab you and drag you out to save you,
Yeah,
right?
I believe so, yeah.
So he must have, in order for that to occur, he would have had to have been in the boat, left you there, got back on the boat, and then decide to jump back in the water to save you, right? That would be the only thing that would make sense.
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
You also testified that you're not a big drinker, right?
Very true.
But you testified that you had between 3 and 5 drinks that day, is that correct?
Yes, but I'm not full drinks. I'll babysit drinks. That's what everyone knows me as.
Okay. Now, you testified also that there was some testimony about Cole being jealous. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And you said that he didn't like you speaking to older men, right?
men in general, yes.
And that you were not jealous, correct?
No, I'm very, if you respect me and you respect the relationship, there's no issues.
Okay.
Mhm.
In fact, you said that you demand respect, right?
Right.
And you're not the jealous type.
No.
Isn't it true that you and Cole were at Rocco Tacos in Boca Raton in March of 2022?
Objection,
Okay.
relevance.
State open the door.
I have to do the question first.
That you were at Rocco Tacos in Boca Raton about a month before this incident occurred, and you saw Angela Rada, Cole's ex-girlfriend. She was at a table with 6 friends, and when you went up to the table and started screaming and yelling at Angela about texting Cole, and you were extremely jealous. Do you remember that incident?
Same objection.
What is the relevance of this?
That the state opened the door, that he's the jealous one causing this whole thing, and he's the one that's arguing with her, when the opposite is true.
What's the time frame for the
A
question?
month before the incident.
Anything further, Steve?
Angela Rada was not there on the date of the incident.
I'm gonna overrule the objection. You can answer.
I can answer?
Yes.
I don't remember me getting aggressive like that. I try to do things in a classy manner. I think what I remember is we walked in and he tried to like pretend like she wasn't there. And somebody said hi, it was an interaction. And I think I got like offended that he didn't introduce me. Like if you're gonna say, I don't know, something like that too. But I don't think I attacked her or started like going aggressive. I don't think that was my interaction with her.
Well, isn't it true that you actually went up to this group of women and started confronting Angela?
I don't really remember that, like, I'm sorry. If I did, I probably was in a very, like, unhappy space with him. And maybe she was, like, texting prior, but I'm very kind with everyone, all his friends, everybody he brought around. I was always super kind, so I don't believe I would go up to a group of girls and just start looking crazy. I think something had to happen where I felt it was disrespect on his part.
Okay, well, isn't it true that you actually approached the table and confronted Miss Rada when Cole got up from the bar to go to the bathroom? You remember
Objection
that?
asked and answered.
Sustained.
Today you testified on direct examination that it wasn't working out. Remember earlier in the morning that you had already sensed that the relationship wasn't working out, was your words.
Right.
Remember that? Yes?
Yes.
Isn't it true that that morning, before you went to Boca Bash, that Cole got a call from a girl inquiring about a boat rental? Do you remember that? And you becoming enraged with jealousy?
Objection, relatives.
You can answer if you know.
You remember that?
I do remember that. He did get a call from a girl. I think what happened that day, we were just both like over it. It was a lot of tension. We weren't happy from the day before, from what I remember. So I think that when some girl called him, and you know how like guys, they try to like hide or
No, I
not speak
wouldn't
in
know
front
that.
of you.
My question is, isn't it true you got jealous?
I wouldn't say I was jealous. I just, you have a 18-year-old calling your partner and he's hiding the phone, hiding the conversation, you ask questions. Any
Isn't it
woman
true?
would
Isn't
do
it true you were speaking to her on speakerphone and that's how you learned it was a woman or a girl and that's when you became extremely jealous?
No, I don't think so.
This wasn't a girlfriend, this was just a woman inquiring about a boat rental because he worked as a boat broker a little bit. You remember that?
I don't recall him being a boat broker, no.
So what was your impression? Was this a girlfriend or just a female friend? Or what was your impression who this woman was?
Objection, speculation.
If you knew.
I'm sustaining the objection.
Isn't it true that Cole threw a seltzer at your face and knocked you to the ground? Remember saying that on some other occasion?
And not to the ground?
Yeah, that while you were on the trampoline, that he threw this can, like a football,
Right.
knocked you to the ground, right?
Right, yes.
And today, your testimony is that he threw the seltzer can unintentionally. You remember saying that on direct examination?
Objection, mischaracterization of the evidence.
Overruled.
You remember saying to this court that he threw the can unintentionally.
What I'm trying to say is that I don't think that this was a sober man acting in his normal self. He's not naturally an aggressive person. Like when he's sober and he's calm, he's very kind and very sweet.
My question wasn't regarding aggressiveness. What I'm asking you, isn't it true that you testified that he threw the can unintentionally?
I don't know what his intentions were. I don't know why he threw the cans. I don't know how he was feeling at the moment. All I know is that I felt unsafe at that moment.
I don't know, I'm trying to explore why you use that word. You used the word that he didn't do it intentionally. Isn't that true?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
Isn't that true?
I did use that word, and maybe I am using the wrong words, but I don't think that he said, I'm gonna throw this can at Caroline's face. I don't think that that's what he was trying to do, or like, it was a decision. I think he was not thinking clearly, and he just acted.
Well, when the state was questioning you after the break, they tried to get you to say that it was malicious. Do you remember that?
It could have been malicious, I don't know. He wasn't happy with me.
Okay, so it could have been malicious, it could have been unintentional, and it was that he took it like a football and threw it at you and knocked you to the ground, right?
Right.
It was all those things.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true that Cole was throwing, well, you said earlier that Cole had thrown a number of seltzers, right? While you were all on the trampoline?
Yes.
And you were on the trampoline with 6 other young girls, is that right?
Yeah, there was a bunch of girls.
Maybe more than 6?
I don't know.
And isn't it true that Cole was throwing these seltzers to the other girls as well?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
Isn't it true that Cole was throwing these other seltzers to the other girls?
I don't recall.
And you got jealous, right?
No.
You got upset and angry at him because he was throwing seltzers to not just you, but all the girls on the trampoline, right?
Am I allowed to answer?
I'm asking you to answer.
No, I got upset because it hit me. I think any normal person that gets hit in the face is going to get upset. It wasn't nice.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. You testified that he hit you right in the face, right? Like
Right.
the eye and the face area? Is that yes?
Yes,
In the cheek, right?
yes.
And you got actually swollen from that. You remember testifying to that on another occasion?
Yes, at that moment, he hit me. It hurt me a lot.
In
And
fact, you were screaming, right?
I was
Crying,
I was.
okay? And you were asking people to help you. You remember that?
Yeah, they helped me off the trampoline back on the boat, and that's when he was sitting on the cooler, and I started yelling at him, what are you doing? What are you thinking? And he was just laughing like he wasn't registering what had just happened.
So you actually sustained an injury. You just said you were swollen, right? On your eye and cheek area from that.
I felt a lot of pain, yes, especially when I was swimming in the water.
What's easier?
Mayor Pro Tem.
You may.
I'm showing you what's in evidence as defense number 2. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
Is that you?
yes.
And that's you on the boat,
Use
Alex of Paris's boat?
You may.
Oh. Sorry, Judge.
No, you're trying to minimize.
Don't try to knock me down.
Yeah,
And that's you?
yeah,
Okay, and that was on the Paris's or the Alex boat, as we've been referring to it?
yes.
All right. And that, your face without any injuries at all?
I mean, the image is distorted. I don't think you can get anything from that image. You
Nothing
can't
at all?
see- No,
No? So tell me what's distorted about this image.
you can tell it's depixelated.
Oh, what does that mean? Somebody tampered with this?
No, that means that the image is not a full, it wasn't printed to its full capacity.
Okay, but can you tell me, can you point out for me any injuries to your cheek or eye area?
I mean, I don't know, it's a little distorted. You could just see that definitely she's been crying a lot. Something is,
I didn't ask if you were crying. What I'm asking you, do you see any cuts on your eye or cheek or face?
I never said I had any cuts.
I didn't
say
ask if
that.
you ever said that. I'm saying, do you see any cuts or scratches to your face?
No, I don't see cuts.
Do you see any bruises to your face?
I see swelling, yes.
Okay,
definitely.
can you point to the swelling, please?
I would say like this.
Well, what's this? You're pointing to your whole face.
Yeah, here. No,
So-
I'm pointing right there where the can hit me.
So for the record, you're pointing to the left eye and cheek, is that correct?
Yes,
Is that your left eye and cheek?
yes.
And you're saying that they're swelling there, right?
I would say it looks a little swollen. It doesn't look normal to me.
You may.
May I approach the witness?
I'm showing you what's been marked as defense number 5 for identification purposes. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
That's you? Why are you chuckling?
I just look so crazy.
What do you mean crazy?
My hair is a mess, my makeup is drippy. You caught me in the middle of saying something. It's not a nice image.
All right, so do you remember this image being taken at the dock area after you were taken off the boat? After you were taken from the Paris boat, you were taken to land, you remember
I
that?
didn't know they were taking pictures of me.
All right, but do you remember being taken to land?
Oh, yes.
All right, and this is a photo or an image of you at the land, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And this time would offer states, excuse me, defense 5 and evidence.
Any legal objection to defense file?
No.
We received an evidence without objection, defense exhibit number 5.
Thank you. Okay. And do you see any injuries to your face on this image?
I do not. The image is a bit more clearer.
And you would agree that there's no swelling or bruising or any injury to your left side of the face or your eye?
I don't know, it looks a little, right here, it just looks weird. I don't know if it's because the image is distorted or...
Okay, and again, for the record, you're pointing to the left side of your face, eye area, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And it's your testimony that you believe that there's swelling there from the can when it hit you in the eye?
Yes.
Showing you, showing you what's in evidence. Is this on
Tap it.
top?
No. Up.
Hello?
There you go.
Showing you what's in evidence as defense number 3.
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what is this?
That's when I was just like telling him everything's gonna be okay, don't panic.
All right, and this is at the back or the side of the Paris boat?
Yes, I believe the side.
Okay, and this is obviously Cole, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're holding his hands?
Yes.
And you're comforting him at this point, telling him everything's gonna be okay?
Yeah.
You two weren't arguing at this point, right?
No, there was no argument.
No argument at all, right?
Mm-mm.
Is that a no?
No.
In fact, the whole time that Cole was at the rear of Paris boat, there was never any argument whatsoever, right?
When he was in that holding on?
Yes.
No, I was not arguing with him. I just kept reminding him that things are gonna be fine, don't freak out, don't panic.
And this was somebody that you were comforting who had just tried to kill you, right, and drown you?
I don't know what his intentions were, but I do know that I was scared for my life. That's all I know.
And you testified, you thought that he get his hands around your throat. He was trying to kill you or drown you, right?
Yeah, he was in a complete rage. He was angry. You know, this wasn't the first time he's gotten a little angry or, you know, raged or whatever, so.
Okay, but earlier you testified he's not aggressive, and now you're saying this isn't the first time that he's been in a rage?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've had a few incidents prior and it all involved alcohol.
Alright, so
So
he-
alcohol was never his friend.
All right. So was he aggressive to you in the past or not?
We had 2 incidents at the Hard Rock Hotel where there was a lot of alcohol involved and then it would get aggressive, it could spiral out of control, but it was never to the point of this. He had never like physically hurt me, or he would just like lash out and start screaming or getting in my face and, you know, pointing, but it wasn't aggressive like what I experienced at the Boca Bash.
You testified on direct examination briefly about a civil lawsuit. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And I'm not referring to the injunction where you were seeking a restraining order, but the civil lawsuit,
okay,
okay? And you said, quote, Jason is no longer on the case, that he was threatening you. Do you remember that?
yes,
Okay. And you had a difference of opinion. You remember that?
yes,
And that's Jason Fagnano that you're referring to, right?
yes.
So you fired Jason, or did he get off the case? What happened?
Well, he mentioned that he would not be representing me anymore.
All right, and have you hired a new lawyer to take over that civil lawsuit?
No, the civil lawsuit's not something that I am really focused on like I was years ago.
All right, but that civil lawsuit is still open, is it not?
Yes,
Has not been dismissed, it's currently pending, right?
right,
All right, and I've spoken with attorneys, that case has sort of been put on the back burner pending the outcome of this case, is it not?
right, yes,
Okay, and you said something on direct examination, you said Boca Bash should be responsible, do you remember that?
yes, I do believe that, they throw a huge event, that hundreds, thousands of people go out there, but there's no lifeguards. They do have like, police officers like on the water, but it's all the way to the left side of where the yachts are, not in the middle. So this could have easily been prevented if there were lifeguards or cops everywhere, watching the scene.
So you actually believe that the lawsuit should include the town of Boca or Boca Bash, whoever throws that event, due to their negligence, right?
Objection relevance?
You believe that the lawsuit should actually be against Boca Bash or the town of Boca because of their irresponsibility or negligence, right, for not having lifeguards.
I do believe that they need to implement like a better system. It's an event that continues to go on till today. And what we don't want is this happening to someone else.
Okay, is that where the disagreement arose between you and Mr. Fagnano, that you wanted to sue other entities and he did not?
I don't really want to get into details as to the conversation that I had with him, but we're just not on the same page.
Is your lawsuit going to be amended to include Boca Raton or some other entity, Boca Bash?
Judge, I'm gonna object to attorney-client privilege.
And at this point, it's not relevant, like, sustain the objection.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
Showing you what's been marked as offense number 15 for identification purposes. Do you recognize this?
Yes,
What is this?
a mugshot.
Okay, this was after you were arrested on the 24th for the outstanding violation of probation warrant, is that correct?
Yes,
All right, and Your Honor, at this time I would move defense number 15 in 10 minutes.
Any legal objection?
No.
Be receiving the evidence without objection, dispense with number 15.
All right, would you take a look at that?
Yes,
All right. And is it your testimony that this photo is the way you appeared that day?
yes.
And can you show me if there's any injuries to your face?
I do not see any injuries to my face.
Okay, there's no bruising either or swelling, is that correct?
No,
Okay. And you were booked in to the Palm Beach County Jail after you were taken, after you were arrested that day, correct?
yes, I don't know what time. It could have been late, I'm not too sure.
All right, but you would agree there's absolutely no injuries to your face on this?
I don't see any swelling, no.
Thank you.
Now, we've talked a little bit about the morning of the 24th, but the evening before, on the 23rd of April, you actually spent the evening at Cole's parents' home in Boca Raton, is that correct?
Yes,
And your children remained down in, well, you were living in Miramar at the time in Broward, or you were living in Dade at the time?
Broward,
So you were living in Miramar,
yes,
and that's in Broward County?
yes,
And the incident involving your probation, that occurred actually in Miami-Dade, is that correct?
yes.
And your probation was transferred to Broward County where you reside?
I'm not entirely sure.
Where were you being supervised by Officer Wilson? Was it in Broward or was it in Miami?
I don't remember, it was years ago.
Okay. All right, but that night, the night before you spent the night in Boca Raton, right?
Yes,
And you were on felony probation at the time? Right? You were on probation at the time?
right,
On the day of this incident, you were on
Yes.
probation? All right. And your probation officer didn't give you permission to go out of county and go to Palm Beach County, did they?
no, I did not ask for permission.
And you know you're not allowed to go out of county when you're on probation, isn't that correct?
That's true, yes.
All right. You also know that when you're on probation, you're not allowed to drink alcohol, right?
I don't drink, so yes, I know.
But you already testified that you had 3 to 5 drinks that day. Remember that?
Yes, light drinks, yes.
What kind of drinks?
Light, like I wasn't finishing the drinks. It was a sip here and there.
Well, whether they were light, heavy, in between, you were consuming some alcohol that day. You already testified to that.
Yes.
All right. And you know you weren't supposed to, right?
Yes.
Were you ever violated for those things after your arrest?
I don't recall. I remember I spoke to the parole officer and they had seen what happened on the news and it wasn't, I think it was just, okay, we're gonna fix this, we're gonna do another 6 months, just stay, try to stay away from Palm Beach, whatever, and I was able to complete the program.
All right, so your probation officers saw the incident on the news, right? They knew that you were a quote-unquote victim of an attempted murder, battery by strangulation, and they told you, don't worry, we're gonna fix this, and just add more time on, right?
Yeah, because I had to go in front of the judge, I had to explain to the judge what happened, and that's when they extended it for 6 more months.
So you never went to jail for that, right? For that violation?
I did go to jail.
Well, you were arrested and taken to jail, and you were
Right.
transported, right? But you were never
Right.
sentenced to any term to jail or prison for violating your probation, were you? They just added more time onto your
No,
probation.
I think they agreed, because it was my first offense, and they had dropped the charge, so they added more time to it.
Okay, so they added some more probation time?
Yes,
Okay. But you never were sent off to jail or prison for any violations of probation, right?
no.
And you still have a withhold adjudication, right? You know what that means?
I don't.
You're a convicted felon?
From my understanding, they said that when I completed the program, that it would get removed from the system. So I'm not sure how it reflects on
on the paperwork,
Yeah.
so you don't know whether you're a convicted felon or not.
Well, I know I'm not a convicted felon because, I've done my time, I served, I did everything I had to do, I paid the fees, but I definitely am not a convicted felon.
You were on probation for resisting officer with violence, is that correct?
Right, that's what the officer said, yes.
You disagree with that?
Well, yes, of course, I did not attack Officer Acosta. It's not realistic. He's like 6'4", big,
Judge.
240 pounds, like.
I'm gonna
it's-
object.
We're getting into very collateral issues.
Okay. Let's go back to the 24th, okay?
Okay,
That morning, you guys got up and you decided, obviously, you're gonna go to Boca Bash, but before you did that, isn't it true that you and Cole went to Publix and ran some errands and got some champagne and a couple of cases of seltzers?
I don't recall what was bought, but I know that he stopped somewhere.
You didn't go in with him to Publix to get the alcohol?
I don't remember.
Then you went to Sebastian Espinoza, Dr. Espinoza's house, you remember that?
Right, yes,
And you got there around 9:30, does that sound about right?
it could be, yeah.
All right. And you didn't have any alcohol before you got to Dr. Espinoza's, did you?
No, we had just, no.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the incident that happened on a boat before the drowning and the attempted murder occurred, okay? While you were, I think it was on Anthony's boat, or one of the boats that were tied up to each other,
Okay.
there was an incident with a guy where he slapped your behind. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And what was your testimony regarding that? What did Cole do?
they got in each other's space, and then that's when Cole got kicked out of that boat from the dad. The dad told him to get off, and then obviously I was not gonna stay. I went to the boat, but he was very upset. I was upset.
Okay. And isn't it true that Cole shoved the guy into a propeller and you
Yes.
saw blood?
No, I don't recall blood, but he definitely shoved the guy.
All right, so you shoved the guy off the boat into the boat's propeller,
Yes, in the back.
and it may have drawn some blood. You're not sure?
I don't remember.
And
The boat was off. It was stationed in the water, so it's not like it was on. But he did shove him in the boat in the back.
and he actually hit the propeller.
Yes.
And no police came for that incident, right? You never saw any police arrive?
No. He got kicked off the boat, and then they looked at me and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I went with Cole. I didn't know any of them.
My question is, you never saw any law enforcement authorities come over to investigate a guy who had been thrown overboard into a propeller, did you?
There was no officers around.
You didn't call the police, did you? The guy had just been thrown into a propeller, did you call the police?
I mean, no, but Cole was upset. He disrespected his girlfriend. You can't, that's wrong. That wasn't my.
Nobody else called the police when they threw this guy into the propeller, right?
Objection, speculation.
If you know.
No, I don't know. I just know that a lot of people were drinking, and when there's a lot of alcohol, people are not thinking clearly. There's a lot of ego.
Let's see if there's another question.
Nobody from the boat, you didn't see anybody from the boat jump in to save this guy who was thrown into the propeller, right?
I think he was like the dad and the friends grabbed him because he had fallen, and they grabbed him. And then, like I said, they were very angry, so they just started kicking people off.
And isn't it true that when this guy slapped your bottom, that you got really upset with Cole because he didn't go beat up the guy?
No, I think I got upset because these people, what is wrong with them? They have, who does that? I never gave an indication, oh, hi, please,
So you weren't flirting with the guy that would have sort of
No.
tipped him off that was okay to do that, right?
No, that guy was completely drunk.
All right.
Yeah.
And do you remember Cole just sort of getting in between you and this guy to keep you guys apart because you were so angry that Cole wasn't gonna go beat this guy up? Do you remember that happening?
I don't remember, I just remember him getting shoved, and that was the end of that.
Okay, and it's your testimony that you were not angry at Cole because he didn't do something to show this guy that he had disrespected you?
I was angry with everybody on that boat, including him.
You were angry at everybody on that boat, including him, or?
Yes.
And you were angry at him for disrespecting you, right? For
And
not
the guy
protecting
for
you.
slapping my bottoms.
And you were angry at Cole as well for disrespecting you, for not going to beat up the guy, right?
I never asked him to beat up the guy. Like, that's not conversations him and I have had. Like, oh, go beat up that person. That's not.
I'm not talking about arbitrary people. I'm talking about the guy who slapped your butt.
I'm telling you, there was never a conversation where I said, go beat up that guy right now or we're gonna have problems. I would not, why would I send him to go do that?
You testified that on direct examination, that you were screaming at the top of your lungs. Do you remember that?
Which part?
Well, after the slap, were you screaming at the top of your lungs?
After the slap?
Yes. After the slap, let me step back. I don't think that was your testimony. I think at some point you said that when you got on the other boat, there was some wrestling and he was trying to restrain you, and that's when you were screaming. Is that correct?
Oh, yes,
All right. So did that happen before the slap or did that happen after the slap?
after the slap.
All right, so after the slap on the butt, then you guys went to another boat?
Yes,
All right, and it was on that boat that Cole was restraining you?
yes,
And he was wrestling you, is that correct?
yes,
And he had his arms and legs over you like in a sumo position?
yes.
Okay, and when you say sumo position, was he holding you from the front, from the back? How was he holding
He
you?
was holding me, like, he was behind me, holding me.
All right, and he had his legs over you and his arms over you?
Yes,
And you were screaming at the top of your lungs, right?
yes.
And not a single person on this boat came to help you, right?
On this boat, no.
How many people were on that boat?
Like 8, maybe 10.
All right, and whose boat was that? Do you know?
I do not know, but I think it was one of Cole's friends.
You think, you're not sure.
I'm not sure.
So this could have been strangers that Cole did not know, right?
No, I think we were on a boat with one of his friends.
But again, you're speculating, you're not sure.
I don't know if he owns the boat, I don't know if it's his friend's boat, I don't know the details. I just remember there was one guy there that I had met before, and he was close to Cole.
All right, and none of these people came to your assistance, right? Or helped you?
No, there was a boat in front with like 4 gentlemen who were screaming, like, let her go, let her go.
I'm asking about the people on the boat where you were being wrestled like in a sumo position. No one came to help you, right?
No,
Objection, asked and answered.
Action, or
they did not.
All right, was the boat that you were on, was that Cole's friend from New York, Anthony Mimo? An Italian guy? Did you see Anthony Mimo on that boat that you were just talking about?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, you don't know his friend Anthony?
Objection, asked and answered.
sustained.
Okay. Was it right after this that Cole, with his nails and his fingers, shoved his fingers into your vagina and he tried to rip you apart? You remember saying that?
I hope I did not use the word vagina. I don't think I used it, but yes, he had his hands right in front, like on top of, like the bikini area, and he was just being very aggressive and squeezing his fingers in me with a lot of anger.
Okay, so underneath your bathing suit?
Yes.
You're not sure?
No, I'm pretty sure it was underneath.
Pretty sure, but you're not 100% certain?
I don't, because I don't recall him I think he was like trying to hold me, and my bathing suit being a 2-piece, the hand went in, and that's how I ended up with those marks.
Isn't it true that Cole actually put his fingers into your vagina and he tried to rip you apart?
I never said that.
May I approach? I just handed you a copy of your deposition. Do you remember giving a deposition in this case?
Yes.
And Mr. Fagnano was present.
Okay.
You remember that?
Yes.
And the prosecutor and your attorney, Mr.
Yes.
Fagnano, everybody was there? And you swore to tell the truth at that deposition?
Yes.
Okay, can you turn to page 98, please? And look at lines 4 through 6. Do you see where they're numbered on the right side, going down 1 through 25?
Yes.
All right, to yourself quietly, just look at lines 4 through 6, please.
Yes.
Read them to yourself.
Okay. I read it.
You read it?
Yes.
Okay, does that refresh your memory about you saying that?
Yes.
So isn't it true that you said that Cole shoved his fingers inside your vagina and he tried to rip you apart?
I don't think I said in. I think she probably misheard me.
Oh, she being the court reporter?
Yes.
So you think that this is an
It
error?
wasn't inside my vagina. That it wasn't that low. It was the pictures that they took at the hospital were on top, not inside. So.
But you would agree, that's what that says.
Yes, I think though what it is, it's supposed to say on my vagina. Maybe she didn't understand me, but I would not say inside my vagina because it was not inside.
At the end of your deposition, you had an opportunity to read your deposition and make any corrections. Do you remember that?
I do remember. I think it was just like 3 hours way too long and I just left.
Okay, so you did, well, no, at the end of your deposition, the court reporter told you that you have an opportunity to read it to make any corrections.
Right.
Right, you remember that?
Right.
Did you ever make any corrections and say, oh, you know what, I didn't say that word?
I did, that actually went like past me because it doesn't even make sense. He just shoved it in my, it doesn't make sense to me.
All right, well, also when you did your injunction, remember you filed an injunction?
Okay,
You remember that?
sure.
You were looking
Yes.
for a restraining order against Cole?
Yes.
Didn't you also say that he went in your groin during the injunction?
The bruises were outside, so I don't know why we are focused on it being inside when the hospital didn't take any images of that.
I'm trying to just find out what you said in your injunction. Isn't it true that you also said that he did that in your injunction paperwork?
The injunction was filled out by the attorney?
So you signed the injunction. We'll get into that in a minute.
Okay.
So my question is, are you taking exception with that? Are you saying you never said that in your injunction either?
I don't think I ever told anyone that it was inside my vagina. And I might be wrong if someone would like to correct me, but I don't recall saying inside. I do remember it was very close to down that area,
Oh.
and but it wasn't inside. No.
Well, you never told the police when they came to the boat, to the Paris boat, you never told the police that Cole had done something to your vagina or had sexually molested you, right? When the officers, Officer Hammond and the female officer and the male officer were talking to you on the boat, you remember that?
No, I think that once they took me to the hospital and they started taking photos, that's when the conversation arose, but I wasn't getting into details with anyone.
I'm talking about the boat.
Oh.
Did you ever tell the officers after this happened that he had sexually molested you?
And no,
When you got to the dock, to the land, did you ever tell the officers that he had done something sexually to you?
no, I never used the word I never
Well,
used sexual abuse.
Did you ever say that he stuck his fingers or his nails into your vagina?
I did say he stuck his nails right close to my vagina, I did say that.
All right, you told that to Officer Hudson and Officer Hammond?
I don't remember what I told them.
Did you tell them that when you got to land, after you left the boat, the
I
Paris
don't
boat?
remember.
And it's your testimony while Cole was doing this to you in your vagina area, and you were screaming at the top of your lungs, nobody came to help you, right?
Correct.
And it was right after this attack in this area, that Cole threw you off the boat. That's your testimony, right?
Right, I was able to slip, to get off, and that's when I got shoved in.
So he shoved you in. You didn't jump off voluntarily, right?
Correct.
And again, going back to when you were at the back of the Paris boat, I'll refer to it as, there was never any arguing and you were attentive to Cole, is that correct?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that when Officer Hudson asked you if Cole pushed you under the water, you told him no?
I don't recall.
Would you look at your depo, please?
Sure,
Yep.
yes.
And turn to page 120. Line 25, which is the last line on that page. Just read it to yourself, please. And then flip over to the next page, 121, and look at lines 1 and 2.
Okay,
Does that refresh your recollection?
yes.
Now, isn't it true that when Officer Hudson asked you if Cole pushed you under the water, you told him no?
Yes, I remember in the beginning when the officers were interrogating, trying to ask me questions, I was not,
You weren't being honest with him?
I did not want them to know what had just happened.
All right, so again, you told him that, right? And you weren't being honest with him when you told him that, right? Is that your testimony today? You lied to him?
I didn't lie to him. I think that I was probably in a state of shock. I don't know what to tell you. I didn't want to throw this one under the bus.
Well, which one was it? Was it you were in shock? You didn't want to throw this one under the bus? Or you were lying? Tell the court which one of those things occurred.
Objection argumentative.
It is argumentative. Why don't you rephrase your question?
So again, isn't it true that when Officer Hudson asked you if Cole pushed you under the water, you said no, he did not?
I probably did say that in the beginning with the police officers. I was not trying to get into anything. I kept trying to make it seem like everything was fine. And then eventually they kept asking, like, what happened? And
Isn't it true that when you were asked what happened while on the Paris boat, you told the police, quote, "Nothing happened, we were at Boca Bash on a boat and we lost our friends." Do you remember saying that?
I probably did, yes.
And isn't it true that you told the police while you were on the Paris boat that you were swimming towards the front of the boat because that's how you believed you could get to land? You remember telling the police that?
Probably, yes.
Do you remember telling the police while on the boat that when you were asked if Cole had put his hands on you at all, you said, quote, "I don't know if he was trying to hold on to me, I don't know what he was doing." Do you remember telling that to the police?
I don't remember, but I probably did say that.
Do you remember while on the boat, the police were questioning you about the marks on your leg, and they asked you if Cole had caused those marks by grabbing you, and you said, no, they're sunspots.
I probably did say that.
And isn't it true when the police were questioning you on the boat about bruises on your arm and whether Cole had grabbed you and caused those marks, you said no, he did not?
I probably did say that.
And isn't it true that you told the police while on the boat that Cole was holding onto your back? Not your neck, not your throat, but your back. Do you remember telling the police that?
Yes, I think it's obvious that I did not want to speak to the cops. I did not want to get into details. I was hoping we could just part ways. You go home, I go to my kids, and I didn't want to make it a big deal.
And isn't it?
The large one, not the far. Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you see this okay from there, or do you want me to come up?
No, I can see it.
All right. And isn't it true, when the police, back at the dock, where the land, where this picture is from, asked you again if you were sure that Cole did not do anything to you, you said no?
I probably did.
And isn't it true that you told the police that Cole was a good kid and he was going to law school? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And do you remember expressing shock as depicted in this photo? Defense number 5, when the police told you that they were arresting Cole.
Oh, what I do remember is when the cops told me they were arresting him, I just knew it was gonna end bad. Like, I knew this was not, I was very, what I didn't want to happen had happened, so I felt like mortified. I was not happy with the news. I was trying to avoid everything so that,
Why weren't you happy? Because you had said something that wasn't true? You accused him of drowning you?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled, yeah.
At the end of the day, Cole knows what he did. Cole knows exactly what he did, and everyone that was there witnessed him. I don't think what we should do is try to cover up the mistakes. I think we should just own it and do better. And, he's a man. You can see in my actions, the whole time, I'm not trying to get him in trouble. That was never, that's not how I am as a woman, as a person, especially someone in a relationship. I felt very bad that things had escalated to the point that it got there.
When they told you, when the police told you that he was being arrested and being charged and going to jail, you were actually so shocked and you said to them, "Oh my God, what charges?" You remember saying that?
Yes, I did.
You couldn't believe it because none of this had happened. He didn't try to kill you. He didn't try to drown you, right? This was something that you made up. Isn't that a fact?
No, not at all. It's not a fact. The fact of the matter is that Cole was in a complete rage, had me by my neck under the water, and everyone witnessed it. Okay? If I told the cops that everything was fine, was because I did not want him to get in trouble. But then at that point, whatever happened afterwards was not my doing.
Isn't it true that you told the police when they told you that Cole was being arrested, you said, "Don't do this, I'm sorry, no." Do you remember saying that to the police?
Yes, because I cared about him. I don't want, nobody wants to, that's not what was supposed to happen. That's what any normal person would do that was in a relationship with someone that they actually cared about. If I didn't care about him, I wouldn't have cared what had happened, how it happened.
This is a guy that just tried to kill you, right? That's what you want everybody to believe.
Objection, argumentative.
It is argument, sustained.
You never showed Officer Hammond or Officer Hudson any injuries to your neck or throat from this alleged strangulation, right? You never pointed out to them and said, "Hey, look, there's finger marks," or "He hurt me here." You never said that to them, did you?
No.
They never took any photos of your neck because there was nothing there to photograph. Isn't
The
that true?
hospitals took a photo.
I asked you about the officers.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, they did not, but the hospital did.
I asked you about the officers, not the hospital.
Sorry.
You did not point out a single injury to your neck or throat, right? Bottom line.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
There was not a single picture taken of an alleged swollen eye by the officers. Is that correct?
Objection, asked and answered.
While on land at the boat.
Ma'am, I don't know what to tell you. I'm telling you what I experienced and what I went through. I'm not lying. There's no need to lie about this.
There's no
It's-
question, there's no question.
When you made it onto the Paris boat, nobody rendered any type of medical assistance to you, right? They didn't
No.
give you CPR.
No.
They didn't turn you on your side to help expel any water or do anything like that, right?
No.
No?
No.
You weren't coughing up water, right?
Not that I could remember. I know I had like a little difficulty breathing,
But you weren't coughing up water or choking or doing anything like that, right? That would require some sort of aid. Right?
No.
In fact, they gave you a drink. It was either water or orange juice or something, and you were able to drink it without any difficulty, right?
Correct. I don't think I drank it, but I think they offered.
And you were wearing very large hoop earrings that day, is that correct?
Yes.
And they're still intact after this drowning and attempted murder? Right?
Yes.
He didn't pull those out when he was choking you by the neck and you were grabbing his hands, trying to get him off your neck?
No, you did not.
And your hair looks pretty dry. Would you agree with that? In those photos?
Yes.
And yes, it's your testimony that he completely submerged you in water?
Yes.
Isn't it true that when, after you left the Paris boat, you were being transported by law enforcement back to land? Do you remember that, in their boat?
Yes.
And isn't it true that while you were being transported back to land, that you were in a pretty good mood? You were laughing with the officers. Do you remember that?
I probably was, yes.
And do you remember when you, on that transport also, that there was another boat that had passed you with guys that were hooting and hollering at you, and you were smiling back at them? Do you remember that?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
Goes to state of mind.
Sustaining the objection.
You remember telling the officers after this horrific incident, while you're going back on the boat, about your modeling career and that you were a model and an actress? You remember having that discussion?
Objection relevance.
I'm gonna overrule the objection for now,
I'm
but how
pretty
much more
sure.
cross-examination do we have?
Not that much more, Judge.
Overrule the objection for now.
I'm pretty sure that conversation came up. They probably asked what I did. I don't think it was like information I gave voluntarily, but I don't remember.
Okay. Well, after you got to land, you were then transported to Palm Beach County Jail, is that correct?
Mhm.
And the jail wouldn't take you because you had to be medically cleared, right?
Right.
And that's when you went to hospital, and then you were taken back to the jail, is that right?
Yes.
See where you're going.
May I approach the witness?
Sure.
I'm showing you what's been marked for identification purposes, defense 16, 17, and 18. Let's start with this one right here, defense number 16. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is that?
A car.
Whose car?
I believe it's mine.
You're not sure, or is that your car?
It's my car.
All
It
right.
was my car.
Okay. And showing you defense number 18, do you recognize that?
Yes.
Is that also your car?
Yes.
And showing you
I'm
defense,
so sorry, but what does this have to do with anything?
I don't know the next question.
defense number 17, do you recognize that?
Yes,
What is that?
my car.
Okay, and is this a car accident that you had been in?
Objecting to relevance.
Don't know what the pictures are. I don't know what the relevance is.
The question asked if it was the pictures of a car accident, and I believe as of now, there has been no evidence of any injuries to Ms. Schwitzsky's body on the date of the incident. So we're objecting to relevance.
I got you. I'm gonna overrule the objection to the question.
Okay. This was an accident that happened in close proximity to when the Boca Bash incident occurred, right? About 5 or 6 days before?
I don't know, probably.
Okay. April 18th, does that sound right? 6 days before the Boca Bash incident that this accident
I don't
occurred?
remember.
Okay. And as a result of this accident, you had some bruises to your body, on your arms and legs?
No, I don't think so. That was a fender bender, wasn't it?
So your position is that these 16, 17, and 18 was a fender bender?
Yeah, it was right here. I just hit the side of the car.
Judge, at this time, I would offer these exhibits into evidence.
Same objection as relevance.
Relevance and a collateral issue impeachment, because we have no testimony that there are injuries.
There were testimony there was bruises on the arms and the legs.
I'm gonna admit them in evidence over objection as defense 16, 17, 18.
Thank you. You would agree that those exhibits that were just placed into evidence, you hit a tree, right?
Yes.
That was not a little fender bender, you actually went into a palm tree, right?
Objection, relevance.
I mean, the facts of the incident are not necessarily relevant. The fact that it corroborates some of the testimony may be relevant. So how far are we gonna go into the facts of a prior incident?
That's it, Judge, just
Let's sustain the objection.
when Cole reached you in the water at the back of the Paris boat, he was very intoxicated, was he not?
Yeah, I definitely would say he was not himself.
And he was having trouble breathing and swimming, what, did he not?
Objection, speculation.
If you know.
You answer again?
I don't know.
And isn't it true that when he grabbed onto you because he was drowning?
Objection, speculation.
If you know.
I mean, that's what they're saying, but if you're drowning, why wouldn't you just go on the floaty? Why would you drag me under the water? That doesn't make sense.
Well, he didn't have a floaty when he swam up to you, did he not?
There was a floaty right there. He could have just held on. Why would you come and hold on to me?
You're assuming that he saw the floaty and that there was a floaty in close proximity. Are you
The
not?
floaty was right I was on the floaty. How could you not see the floaty?
So you were on the floaty when he came up to you and
Yes.
drowned you?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you testified on direct examination you were not on the floaty when he came up to you.
I don't know. I'm so sorry, but I was on the floaty when he came and dragged me in the water.
Okay, so you were actually on it when he came up under you and put his hands around your neck and tried to drown you?
Yes, I was on top of the floaty and he dragged me into the water. So if your case is that he was drowning, why wouldn't he just hold on to the boat or the floaties? Why would he come and then why would he hold on to my neck? I don't understand how.
And again, this was a floaty that had been given to you by Matt Harris after he jumped into the water? Or this was a floaty that was there when you first came
The
up?
wife gave me a floaty. So there was 2 floaties in the water, so he could have chose one, but he didn't.
And that's assuming that he could have seen those floaties, right? You don't know whether he did or did not.
Well, he saw me, he jumped onto me.
You don't know if he saw you, you don't know if he just went to grab the first thing that he could latch onto to gain composure, right?
You don't
Objection,
know
counsel
either.
Can
testifying?
we ask questions and answers that aren't just speculation, please?
May I approach the witness, please?
You may.
I'm showing you what's been marked for identification purposes, defense number 19. Would you take a look at that? You recognize that? There's several pages, leaf through them.
I do recognize this.
Okay, what is that?
I believe this was what I needed to fill out to protect myself.
What do you mean, the restraining order?
Yes,
Okay, and that restraining order was completed by you, correct?
yes, I wrote this.
All right, and that's your signature at the back of the restraining order?
Yes,
Look at the last page, it's dated April 27th, 2022.
yes,
That'd be 3 days after the incident took place,
yes,
and that's your signature, correct?
yes,
Okay, so no lawyer filled this out for you. This is something you filled out yourself.
yes, but very true.
I'm sorry?
Very true, yes.
And if you look to the, let me get to the page. There's actually 2 places for your signature on this document, is that correct?
Yes,
And this was a petition for injunction for protection against dating violence, right?
yes,
And in this document, you are asked under section 3, can you turn to that section?
okay,
There's a section for case history and reason for seeking the petition, do you see that?
okay,
And then, do you see it, yes or no?
yes,
And then there's a place for you to write what occurred,
okay,
and on the next page, under number 6, there's a chance for you to write what occurred, and then several pages thereafter where you continued it. Do you see that?
yes,
And in this petition for injunction, you wrote that Cole grabbed your groin area and dug his fingernails forcibly. Do you remember that?
yes, because he did.
and you were given a hearing, or actually you requested a hearing on this petition for a final hearing, and the judge actually gave you one. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
You never got notice that there was a hearing for a final notice for final hearing?
I don't think I attended. No.
Right, you never showed up, right?
Right,
So you failed to appear and the injunction was dismissed, right?
right, that's what the attorney mentioned, yes.
Who was your attorney?
At that time, it was Jose Baez.
So it's your testimony that you actually hired Mr. Baez?
Yes, when the incident first occurred, initially I didn't want to do anything, and then I started realizing how bad it was, what had occurred. So Jose is someone that I know, so I reached out to him like a friend, and I just said, hey Jose, I went through this, what do you think? What do you think I should do? And then at that point he said, let's get my team on it, we want to help you.
And Mr. Baez didn't show up either, right?
No,
And Mr. Baez did not sign this petition, you did, right?
yes.
Did you ever refile the petition for injunction?
No, I don't think so.
Why not? If you were so afraid, you could have gone back and filed another one.
Objection, argument, or
Sustained.
Nothing was preventing you from going back and filing another injunction, right?
Well, what I was hearing was that he could, since there was already documentation, that he could not come near me, because there was some court filing, so they were basically saying, you don't need the injunction, you don't need the restraining order, because there's already,
A no contact order in place
exactly.
from the criminal
I think
charges?
so, yeah.
But at that point, you didn't know if the state was going to formally charge him, right?
I did not know. In the beginning, it was like, I don't remember. It was years ago.
And you're aware that another judge could have given you a lifetime injunction or injunction for 10 or 15 years, right?
objection, relevance.
Sustained.
I didn't.
Sustained.
I want to talk just a few minutes about the civil suit that was filed by Mr. Fagnano. You remember that?
Yes.
And that was a civil suit for money, right?
It was, that's what civil's for, yes.
Okay. And you were basically suing for battery, assault, false imprisonment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Is that correct?
I believe that's what they filed, yes.
And it is your intention on getting a financial recovery for that, right? Once this case is over.
At this point, I don't want anything. I don't want any money. I don't want to go through the whole civil lawsuit.
Then why didn't you dismiss it?
I have to do that. Like I said, I haven't really been on speaking terms with Jason since what occurred last time. But with all the years passing and having my new kids and being married, I don't want to continue to relive this nightmare.
But you want to revisit for purposes of suing the town of Boca or some other entity, right? Including them or filing another lawsuit against them to hold them responsible for negligence, right?
Objection,
what I'm-
relevance.
Sustained.
After this incident occurred, you sort of went on you posted a number of things on your Instagram and on your social media about the incident, right?
Yes, I believe that I do have, a lot of people were asking questions. They want to know, this was exploded all over the news. Every news outlet was documenting this, and I didn't think it was fair to hide what happened. I did create like a reel and let people know this is what I face and this is what I'm gonna do. I told people my plans, that I wanted to go to court, I want justice to be served, I want him to get the help he needs.
Okay, and the reel that you're referring to is a video that you posted online, which is basically a montage of all the stories that have been put out by NBC News.
Yes.
People Magazine, TMZ, New York Post, things like that.
Yes,
Okay, and you also did a comedy show, right, in Doral, where you brought up the incident?
I don't remember, that was my first comedy show, and I was very nervous that I completely forgot my entire, diet of what I was gonna bring to the show. I started just rambling and saying different things, but
You brought up this incident, right?
I'm sure it was a joke. It wasn't, I didn't mention his name, I didn't mention the family's name, it was just,
Were you paid by People Magazine or any of those other stories that you, magazines that you spoke with? Were you paid by any of
Objection,
them?
relevance?
Overruled.
Were you paid by People Magazine for your story?
no. In fact, they were all reaching out, they wanted to fly me to LA, they wanted an exclusive TMZ, and every person, I thought it was better for me not to speak on this, to allow it to go to court, let's figure out what's gonna happen. I didn't want to go out there and,
You didn't want to exploit the situation. Right? Is that what you're saying?
no, I think I was more humiliated, and I didn't want them to exploit me
So
and
why-
run with this.
So why were you posting these things? And when you posted the New York Post story, and the People Magazine
Yeah.
story, and NBC story, you actually posted in your Instagram account, quote, "In case you didn't know, now you know."
Yeah. So a lot of people, when it went viral, a lot of people were asking questions and they wanted to know, and I didn't feel it was appropriate to create a video and speak about what occurred. I thought it was proper to just let everyone have their opinions, and then when we go to court, we can have the truth come out.
So you wanted them to know, right?
They all knew, it was before me. Me speaking out was just a moment of, yes, it's true. I went through it, I survived it, I'm okay, you guys.
Isn't it your motto that bad publicity is good publicity? You remember saying that?
Objection, relevance?
Sustained. And given a lot of leeway with respect to bias, but we need to move forward.
Do you remember posting in July of 2022 a post, "I love putting on a show for the cameras" on your
Objection,
Instagram account?
relevance?
Overruled.
Do you remember posting that?
I probably did.
One moment, Your Honor. I have nothing else, thank you.
Can you read that again?
Very good.
On April 24th, 2022, were you putting on a show?
No.
Did you post that in reference to this?
No.
When the defendant pushed you under the water, was it with one hand or two?
2.
And when you were underwater, did he still have a hold of you?
Yes.
Was it with force?
Yes.
When he was on the boat where there was an incident, was he asked to get off that boat?
Yes.
When he was on Anthony's boat, was he asked to get off that boat?
I believe the boat that he was trying to leave with kicked him out as well, and that's how he ended up back in the water, because he had his book bag, and they were leaving him.
So he gets kicked off of one boat, this incident happens, and then he gets kicked off another boat.
Yeah, the boat didn't want to take him. That's how he ended up holding on to the side of the boat that I was on.
When you said you were sorry to the officers, Were you saying that because you had in some way lied to them about being a victim of a crime? Or up
Yeah,
until that point, had you even said anything had happened?
I did not say anything, like I said earlier, I was just trying to act like nothing had happened. And then eventually, I think it was one officer who started talking to me, asking questions, and she was just saying like, it's not okay, you have to say something, and then I kinda,
So with that, hadn't they already told you that he had been arrested or that they were going to arrest him?
yeah,
So when you told the officers what actually happened that day, as much as you did that day, he was already being arrested.
yes,
Was it windy when this happened?
was he with me?
Windy.
Yes,
When you're in a boat, do you feel wind?
yes, it was getting chilly, it was cold.
Showing you defenses 3. Are you wearing a hair tie?
No,
Okay, so when you were in the water, did you have your hair up?
No,
And today your hair is not, it's at a little past shoulder length. How long was your hair on April 24th, 2022?
it was long,
So was it past your shoulders?
yes,
Was it in your chest area?
yes,
And when you're in the water, period, whether you're underwater or just swimming, would your hair have been wet that day?
yes,
Okay, so when police took videos or photos of you when they arrived, had your hair dried?
yes.
Okay. Without going into specifics on weight, how in relativity is Mr. Goldberg to you? Like how much bigger or smaller is Mr. Goldberg to you in weight?
In weight? No, he's strong. He's weighs a lot.
So is he heavier than you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You just have to say yes or no.
Yes.
Everybody does.
So yes. Would he have been able to hold himself up and keep you above water, weighing what he weighed and weighing what you weigh?
Objection, speculation.
Sustain.
Yes.
I sustain the objection. If they're gonna ask another question.
Yes. Brief moment, Judge.
Sure.
Would you have been able to sustain the weight of somebody of Mr. Goldberg's size if they would have jumped on you?
No.
I have nothing further.
All right. Thank you very much, man. Sit down. You're all done.
Okay, thank you.
Just reschedule her, but I